We have a couple of your messages on our WhatsApp page. We will take a look at some of them. It says, good morning, Roland and Mamavi. The management of Tetekwashi Hospital, what are they doing when the place is being left to deteriorate? They sat down with I don't care characters. Now they are calling government. They should be sacked next time they will sit up. Romavi, yo, our president.
It's been a while.
Our president should be frank with UCC students on government employment under IMF and homegrown program. Truth must be told. And then this one is long. MD from Akosombo says, good morning, Mamavi and Roland. Sometimes the EC officials are to be blamed. They are there to apply the rules and regulations and not to be lenient. Take my observation. About 2 Nigerians be registered because they need a card as a requirement for a job, for example. What would have happened had this happened in some of the hot zones? And take the Legon incident too. One center for the thousands of students. It is as if the EC is trying hard to be branded incompetent, changing a logo, pulling up some archived documents and doing the same old things. It's just glorified failure, not rebranding.
Let's stay with the student, Roland, because we know that the vice presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has been saying something, and this is exactly what he says, that the Electoral Commission is practically disenfranchising thousands of students at the University of Ghana, Legon, by stationing only 1 registration center there. And according to him, considering the population size of the school, the EC was supposed to cite more than 1 registration center on the campus. But this was not done. And this comment we've put on our Facebook page, Joy News on TV, and that's generating some comment from you out there. So Julian says, this is very true, even though I don't like Dr. Bawumia and all he preaches. I think the 1 polling station we have at the University of Ghana, Legon, is very bad. Every day we have thousands of students queuing up to be registered. And because the polling station to be registered more than 16,000, who want to register is just, okay, I'm not sure I get it, but I feel your frustration. Bonti says, God bless Alhaji Muhammadu Bawumia for speaking the truth. The EC's actions in the various tertiary campuses is an attack on our democracy. Hashtag AM show. Lawson Emmanuel says the ruling government is not concerned about the numerous people in Ghana who can't register because of EC incompetence, but they are busy Basing people from Cote d'Ivoire and Togo. This is an allegation you can't prove, so don't make them. Nantama Mahamadu says, but the EC should know best that no amount of intimidations against the opposition NPP will stop the wind of change. A lot of hashtags you give. Asad Daniel says the taxes of the EC with the NDC is exposed. That's where you're linking it to Alaska in Bogatanga. Ataraje Gilbert in asylum at Bogatanga says, instead of apologizing to Ghanaians for making those unfortunate and misguided religious comments, Dr. Bawumia is jumping to talk about limited registration exercise. I don't think any of these students were prevented from registering. Eric Nana Kwabeneje says, really, some shallow minds here. Compare Legon campus, a community, to a community, and you just give 1 registration center. Are we for real? Come on, people, can we for once think? Papa Billin says there's a similar problem at the University of Education, Winneba campus. Indeed, there has not been a single center at the South campus since the commencement of the whole exercise. Some of us see this as a deliberate ploy. Samovi Ransford says, what is he saying at all? The exercise is still ongoing at the school. Please, most of the students must or decide not to. Okay, not sure I get it. Francisca says in Ghana, EC is being controlled. Okay, that's a wild allegation that I'm not going to repeat on the program. But keep your comments coming through. You can send us WhatsApp messages on 0560 800,000. Let's see what Nana Kwejo Mafo is saying. And he says, that's very true. The EC and NDC knows the students are well informed to make a good and positive change decision. Okay, more of that angle. David Ajaho says, I'm sure the EC should put 4,000 registration centers in Circle and 10,000 in Makola respectively. We could have done this online and saved us all the time. Somebody has said that, why don't they just open it up when you turn 18, you walk into a district office
and you just have to wait.
You just register.
Yeah.
You know, just simple like that. But we have to wait for a time like this, and then we complain that the machines are not too many. But still keep those comments coming through. There's a story in the Daily Graphic newspaper that I will share with you, but Roland has got a lot more messages to share on WhatsApp.
I have this one. It says, hi Roland, I think to avoid tension in this country, we all should reject both the NDC and NPP from Prince, from Dodi Mempiasam, KJB. And then also we have the banks have started deducting our monies at the banks. Matthew, Takwa, you know, once you have, there will be deductions.
Like you've taken a loan or something? Or
I really do know.
What's the deduction? Please send us a lot more.
Okay. And okay, Selassie, you says it's your birthday today.
Yeah.
What did I see?
Happy birthday, Selassie. Roland is trying to pull the rest of the information.
Yeah.
But whilst you do that, there's a story in the Daily Graphic that I wanted to share. It says opposition party thrown out of South Africa Parliament for heckling Jacob Zuma. This is page 5, the Daily Graphic newspaper of today, Thursday, and it says politicians from an opposition South African party have been removed from Parliament after they tried to block President Jacob Zuma from speaking. Economic freedom fighters, MPs heckled and chanted, "Zuma, leave the house," during his first appearance in Parliament since 2 damning court rulings against him. The Speaker ordered security officers to throw them out. Last Friday, a court said that Mr. Zuma should be charged with corruption. The case is related to a multi-billion-dollar arms deal the government negotiated back in 1999. And they continue to tell you a lot of things that have happened, but check this out. You can just see the paper would give you a picture of what happened in Parliament. So these MPs heckling Jacob Zuma, and then they were in fact, they were thrown out of Parliament. Interesting times in South Africa. Lots of drama in their Parliament. It's always interesting when you catch up some of the things that happens later on YouTube. Okay, now let's talk my banner right here on our show. I sat down with the chief executive of the Mental Health Authority not too long ago. We had a lengthy conversation. They've got new plans for mental health in Ghana, but also a discovery that there are people, Roland, there are people in the mental facilities who have been referred there by the courts. So, you know, like say, you mother, this is wild, you mother your mom, and that won't happen
There's
anyway.
a plea for insanity.
And then you are taken to the court. I mean, that's like not a normal thing that a son would do to a mother. So the judge will look at the situation and say, okay, go to we're taking you
for
to
evaluation.
For exactly. And guess what? Sometimes when they send them, they leave them there. Like they forget about them or what?
Prosecution team
Yeah.
from the police. Okay.
Yeah. It's a
And
judge
so-
that...
and
Is
so-
it the prosecution that will plead that way, or is the judge that will say...
Yes, but you'll be sent there by the prosecution team.
And
So at the end
there's
of the day, you could be there for decades.
Yeah. There are people who have been there, you won't believe it, for 30, 40 years. There's a story of a man who's been at this Accra Psychiatric Hospital for some 35 years. And in his case, he killed his mother. And then he was, you know, they were supposed to try him. And then they said, let's check him out first. And he's been there since. And once it's a court that puts you there, the hospital cannot say they are releasing you. These are among a lot of things that are happening in some of the mental facilities. A lot of things that I talked about with Dr. Akwesi Osei. We'll bring you back that conversation. That's my banner this morning.
Basically, things haven't changed. And we really don't expect things to change in a short time. What we've done is that we have begun a process of changing things that I can assure people that things are going to change. But change requires some time. What I mean by the change is that with the new paradigm of mental health care occasioned by the passage of the Mental Health Act, we have started instituting processes that will change things. For instance, we are going to downsize Accra Psychiatric Hospital. We started downsizing it anyway. So from 1,200 patients we had some time back as inpatients, we now have 500. We are going to go down further till we have only 300. Pantan likewise is going down till we have only 200. Ankafor will go down till we have only 100, from 300 to 100. Not only that, similarly, we are going to reduce the workload from about 300 nurses for Accra Psychiatric Hospital to a much lower level, and the rest will be sent to the communities. We want to emphasize community care as against institutional care and also centralized care. All along, the 3 psychiatric hospitals we know are located down south at the coastal area. You go up north, middle, northern belts, we don't have any site facility. We really want to send services into the community where people really are. That will make it cheaper, that will make it less expensive also for the government. We know institutional care requires a lot of money. So if you are going to the community to see them where they are, it will be less expensive for them, and or to the government and to the individuals. And then if you bring people to an institution, you keep them there for 3, 4, 6 months, sometimes 1 year. By the time they go back, that is where the stigma comes in. Everybody says, hey, you were in the institution, you are mentally. But if you see them in their communities, within 2 weeks they are fine, the stigma will not be there. And many other side things. Another major thing which has not happened, which will happen, is that we are going to establish a mental health fund. And with the fund established, we will have our own money with which to run all our services. Right now, the no money syndrome that we've been facing all along is still there. We really don't have money to run the services. But that is where the law comes in. Once we have the fund established, we will have money, and that fund will be established, or it's been established, but it will be operational if we have the airline legislative instrument passed. That airline will define exactly how you get money into the fund. For instance, Parliament will decide that we, together with Minister of Finance, will decide that either we are establishing a new levy, mental health levy, or we are taking part of existing levy like Get Fund, insurance levy, road fund, whatever. Once that amount of money is decided and we have it into the fund, then on a regular basis, we know we have money with which to run all our services, including procuring medications. So that is exactly what's going to happen.
But if the LI has not been passed, then which law is establishing the authority?
We have the parent law, the Mental Health Act 2012, Act 846. That is the substantive law. But you know, our lawmaking in Ghana, we have 2 tiers, the parent law and the subsidiary or LI. The subsidiary law spells out exactly how the parent law is to be established or is to be implemented. So we have this parent law, that's what we are operating with, but the LI will now define exactly the nitty-gritties. Do
you have that before a committee in Parliament, for instance?
It's gone to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Subsidiary Affairs legislation.
Okay.
And there are a few things we are discussing. Once we are through with that, then it goes to the main floor, and we are hoping that that will be done in the next 1 or 2 quarters.
Okay. But let's go back to the downsizing bit of the inmates in the psychiatric hospitals. Where will the rest go?
The rest will be going to the communities. Let me say that these are not people who are still unwell. They are people who are well enough to go home and be mingle with their people and continue their medications at home. So they are well. As I said, we started with 1,200 a few years back, and we now have only 500. All these people are well. Of course, it does not mean that well enough to stop medications completely, but it means well enough to be at home and continue the treatment. We also have our community psychiatric nurses in the community, so we are linking them up. So they will be following them up, ensuring they are taking their medications. When it's time for them to come for review, then they come. Then they will continue to be well. So far, those who sent home, they are mingling with their relatives. Some are schooling, some are in their matrimonial homes, some are working and whatnot. So that is the way forward. So
it's not as if you want to build health centers, smaller health centers in the communities.
We will do that, actually. We intend to build psychiatric hospitals, standalone psychiatric hospitals in every region. But if I say what we have Accra, for instance, now we have 500 patients. We want to build just 40 to 50 bed facilities within every region. But even so, if I say every region, that doesn't necessarily mean automatically. We will start strategically. If by the time we get to maybe 2 or 3 or 4 regions covered, we realize the need is no longer there, we will not continue to build. But for now, we are going to have every region which will have 40 to 50 bed psychiatric hospital as standalone. Not only that, every regional hospital will have a psychiatric wing of 10 to 20 beds. That will be part of the regional hospital. So if, just as you go for your malaria treatment, you can also go for your care for mental health problems in the regional hospital. If you require admission, then you are admitted for just up to maximum 2 weeks. If you are not well, then you'll be forwarded, you'll be referred to the psychiatric hospital. Apart from that, every district hospital will also be running psychiatric clinics. And where patients require to be admitted, they will go to the general wards and where you will have virtual beds, 2 to 5 beds, virtually dedicated to mentally ill patients. If you do it that way, you realize that patients are being seen in their communities. Even those who require inpatients will be attended to in their communities, and very few will require to come to Accra and Kafo-Pantan. That is the way forward, so that we are decentralizing mental health care, de-emphasizing institutional care, and rather put emphasis on community care for all the advantages as I mentioned earlier.
And one thing that you also say is to reduce the workload on the workers who work in these facilities. Ideally, how is it supposed to be? How many patients to a nurse or a doctor?
Well, ideally, one patient, one nurse should be attended to not more than 5 patients, 4 to 5 patients, ideally. If you go to our wards, sometimes you have one nurse attending to 40, 50 patients. That's you cannot give the best. But 1 to 4 to 5, one nurse to 4 or 5 patients. That then you can give proper attention. If I say 4 to 5, I mean at any particular time. So that for the 3 shifts, at least you require 3 nurses to every 4 or 5 patients. And that should be distributed. Also making room for those who might be on leave, maternity, sick off, and whatnot. So probably you require about 6 to 7 nurses for every, one nurse, about 2 or 3 nurses to every 4 or 5 patients. That is how you'll be able to manage
so this is the ideal situation.
Yes, and we are getting there. You will get there.
When?
You have
an amazing plan, but I'm just dreaming about it. I don't know when it will be real on the
Well, I want to add that as for our plans, they are amazing. We are dreaming big and we are starting small, and we are getting there. Now, for instance, we have a lot of our nurses, as I said, we are even sending some from the wards to the facility, to the communities. So for now, that we are even downsizing, reducing the number of patients within the hospitals, we will be able to have adequate numbers of them.
And taking nurses down to the communities also come with its own challenges and support.
Which
are we housing them there? Are we giving them extra money for going deep into the communities?
Which we are addressing. We are trying to link up with the local government so that the local government, the decentralization system is not just with mental health, but every aspect of our life as a nation. So once the local government, the local authorities own this issue, the nurses are coming there, they are your property. The mental health authority is only facilitating, but they are your babies. We will be able to get them to assist with accommodation. I know it's not easy, but we need to begin the process and look at the challenges and see how you solve them.
I appreciate the fact that you say you're starting slowly, even though you have big dreams. But there should certainly be some timelines to this.
We are giving ourselves 5 to 10 years. Within 5 years, we should begin to see noticeable differences. Now, there are changes, but I keep saying that now it's like a silent revolution. Many people do not see what is happening because we are at the level of foundation. We are building the foundation blocks, the structures down there. So understandably, people are not seeing.
But what constitutes the foundation?
For instance, the structures that will be within the foundation, regional mental health subcommittees. We are at the national level, but we need to have our presence in the regions. So we have formed the regional committees. So regional mental health subcommittees of all the 10 regions have been formed. We have appointed coordinators of these committees. So 10 regional coordinators have been appointed. We now want to go further to the districts. So appoint.
What are the committees doing on the ground, really?
They are replicating the mental health board at the national level at the regions, so that they will be coordinating all mental health services within the regions. They will ensure that we have the right mix of personnel, we have right medications, we have whatever needs to be done to be provided to ensure quality mental health within the regions. That is their function. And then we go further to the districts. So we have similar thing there. We will also have visiting committees. Visiting committees are like a human rights oversight committees to make sure that nobody abuses the rights of the mentally ill. Like a prayer camp, you cannot put people in chains. it's been happening. We want it to be a thing of the past. The visiting committees will go around, not only prayer camps, but also any place, traditional healers' homes, any place where we have mentally ill patients kept, whether public institutions or private, to make sure that you are not abusing their rights. You are giving the proper and quality care to them. So these are committees that are going to be formed. We are going to have a mental health review tribunal. And by the way, you started the process of the committees. We are getting nominations from various institutions. Then mental health review tribunal, they will be like a quasi high court, where if anybody's rights are abused, they can hold the person, whoever is abusing their rights, hold the person and ensure that you don't continue to abuse the rights. Where sanctions need to be given, they can provide. So these are structures that are being laid. Once you have them, then you begin to see activities. Then, for instance, you begin to see that mentally ill patients on the streets will no longer be there because we have taken them for treatment and then returned them to the community.
Has the Chief Justice agreed to the special tribunal that you mentioned?
Well, that's in the law. So Parliament passed it. So what we need to do is the process of implementing or establishing that. So we are going to liaise with the Chief Justice, the judicial services, to make sure that this is done. But the law says
is it a national tribunal, or this is one that is also replicated across the country?
You will have a national tribunal, but they will have members in the various regions. So at a very short notice they can mobilize the members in the community, in the region, to adjudicate on a case on behalf of the national tribunal.
So cases such as what?
For instance, let me give you a typical example. Somebody is admitted to the psychiatric hospital, and the person thinks that, no, I didn't need to be admitted. In fact, I'm not a mentally ill patient, and you are wrongly and forcefully admitting me. The patient or the relative can appeal to the tribunal. The tribunal will quickly, within 24 to 48 hours, assemble, get a team, a panel, to look at the case. If the patient really does not, or the person does not really require to be admitted, they will say, release the person because he does not need to be admitted. If he has to be admitted, then they will tell the person that, yes, you are justifiably to be admitted. Or somebody may have been brought by the court for us to assess and report. We have done the assessment, and the person is still there, and it's happened. There are some people that 30, 40 years at the psychiatric hospital, brought by the courts. They are well, and the courts are not coming for them. We have written a number of letters to the courts. They're not coming for them.
So these are people who are perhaps on trial for some offense, who have perhaps pleaded that they are mentally challenged, or
they may have been seen to be mentally ill.
And then the court brings them.
The court brings them,
yes, and report back to us and tell us if they have a mental problem or not.
And we admit, we assess, and we realize they are mentally ill, and they cannot stand trial at that time. So we have to admit and treat them. So we admit, we treat, let's say 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. They are well. So you write a report back to the court that this person you brought, he is well. Please come for him to continue the case. And they are not coming. It may be a murder case, so we can't discharge on our own, or a major offense, we can't discharge.
How many of such people would you say are in your facilities?
We will have about 50, between 50 and 100. If you go to the psychiatric hospital, Accra, there is a ward called a special ward. Special, actually, not, well, it's really a forensic ward. But to give you a more pleasant name, you call it special ward. If you go there, of about 160 patients there, about 100 are such cases who don't really need to be there. That will be the responsibility of the mental health review tribunal. Will come in, minor ones, they will authorize us to discharge them. Major ones, they will force the courts to come for them. That is a crucial kind of body that we require.
That we have about 100 cases unresolved because the persons at the center of the investigations or the trial or whatever it is are in one of these mental facilities of ours.
Not themselves, but you mean like the prosecutor? No, they are not there. But they,
as in the people who are either accused or defending or something.
Precisely, and they are there. And that is there. As I said, there is one guy who's been there for about 32 good years. 32 good years. So more or less, we have incorporated him as part of the hospital.
Do you remember his case?
You will not discuss him, but yes, I know the case. It's a murder case, actually. Murder case. He has a major condition. Well, since you don't know him, I can say major condition we call schizophrenia. A murder case, murdered the mother, was brought, which was obviously unwell. We admitted him, we treated him, he's fine. We have written reports upon reports, 32 years. So even you can imagine, the court that saw him, the prosecutors will no longer be there. They
but
may have gone on transfer.
He's capable of standing trial today.
He's capable of standing trial now, and he's there. But because it's a murder case, we can't do anything about it. But that is such a case that the tribunal will then force the traditional court, whichever court brought him, to come for him. Until then, what is happening is that we are abusing unnecessarily his rights. This person is there at the hospital as a mentally ill. He does not have the rights to go out, to go anywhere. We have virtually wasted his whole life.
Meanwhile, he has not been sentenced.
He's not been sentenced. Probably, if he were to be sentenced, he would have spent less than the 32 years he's been there at the hospital. So that is the issue. And until then, so as far as we are concerned, the rise of mentally ill people who are being abused, that is a major, major issue. People will say, oh, but mentally ill, what does it matter? But you and I can be in their situation and imagine our rights being abused. Another instance, for instance, there was a lady, in fact, a man brought his wife, that the wife was mentally ill. I saw the patient. I assessed everything. The woman was right, was well. So we did not admit. Somebody less experienced could have admitted. Then this woman could then have appealed to the tribunal that have been wrongly admitted. The tribunal would then have come in
even
to assess.
Even for bringing her before you?
Well, as for that one, if somebody thinks he suspects, you will not blame the person too much. But in this case, actually, the man wanted to go for another woman.
But who knows, you could have taken him to another hospital.
Yeah, that's right. And that is why the tribunal is important. And as I said, by the end of the year, that would have been formed. So all these are structures. Coming back to the point, these are structures being formed. Once you have them formed, then people's rights will not be abused. We will be given the proper care. The prayer comes, patients will not be put in chains again because we'll make sure that they stop them.
But you need money to do all this, and then the fund is not in place yet. So
for now,
relying on present.
For now, big thanks to DFID. DFID has been the development partner that has given us the money. This building that we are having where we are running as our headquarters through DFID funding that we've been able to get it. Our vehicles
which we are running. Very excited about the building.
It's not the best that could be. Eventually, this is only temporary. We are in rented premises. We will move out because when we move out, we require more staff.
So this is not your own building?
No, this is rented. So we actually are asking people to assist. Any philanthropist can say, yes, I have a building for you. Take it free of charge. It would help us a lot. Or I have money to give you to go and rent a bigger place. We really need a bigger place. This is really very small. But at least half a loaf of bread is better than nothing. And we are thankful to God for his small mercies. So these are the issues. And trust me, you ask of timelines, 5 years from now, mental health care will be very different. You will not be seeing patients on the streets. You will not be seeing patients in chains at the prayer camps. You go to the psychiatric hospital, they will not be as they are now. You will not be complaining of drugs, such things. And then, very importantly, the criminal activities, inverted commas, the wave of crime that we are seeing going on in the society will reduce. Because a lot of the crimes going on actually have their foundation in mental health problems.
It's good you brought crime into the conversation. 2 incidents happening recently, one in the central region, another in the Ashanti region. Very sad. Somebody who was suspected to be mentally challenged, drug addict, just murdered the mother, the father, and some siblings. Very, very sad incident there. What is happening?
That adds to the very point I'm making. As long as we don't recognize mental illness, as long as we think that if somebody is mentally ill, he's mad. And if he's mad, he's naked, he's dirty, he's unkempt. As long as we we equate mental illness to madness, then whoever is not mad is not mentally ill, and therefore we do not recognize that this person has a problem.
How else do we explain it? If you're mentally ill, you're not mad.
I didn't say that. What I mean is that mental illness goes beyond madness. Madness is only one aspect, the extreme and the major form of mental illness. If somebody, let's say, has been jilted by the boyfriend or by the husband and is depressed, that's mental illness, but that's not madness. If somebody feels that he is hearing voices that are threatening and therefore he must defend himself, he may be dressed neatly in suit, everything, he is mentally ill, paranoid, but he's not mad, at least the way the public will want to see. And this person, because of the paranoia, can attack. In fact, the best form of defense, you say, is to attack first. So I see you coming, I think you're coming to attack me, I attack you first and kill you. We did not recognize it. So we need a lot of public education.
So when do we describe somebody as being mad?
Madness, it means his disorder or his behavior is so outrageous, completely out of the way that virtually everybody recognizes. So dirty, drinking from the gutter, water from the drainage gutter, eating from the refuse dump, or naked. That is the public perception. Madness is really not a technical term, but it's a layman's concept of this major form of mental illness.
Because I was going to ask, then is it right to call somebody mad?
To us, it's not right. Indeed, it's stigmatizing. So we really want to avoid. A number of times people have called me and said, oh, we want to talk to you about the mad people. I say, until you change your word, you won't proceed with the conversation. So madness is an unnecessarily stigmatizing term.
What's the right thing to say? Mentally
ill or persons with mental illness. I agree that it's a mouthful, especially if you translate into vernacular. Obia now or ajinimu yare. So very soon we'll be having a meeting to come up with appropriate terminologies for these conditions.
Okay, but right now they say obia wabodam.
Too stigmatizing.
Obia najimu kano.
Now, najimu kano is still saying obia or ajimu yare.
Okay.
Obia ana obia or ajimu yare. Obia najimu fine. Najimu hano. Najimu kano is stigmatizing, but it's better than wabodam.
Can we ever change this? Because
yes, we can.
Terminologies that we've used over the years.
We can change, but it will be overnight. For instance, until we had the number of the media, especially the radio coming on, we didn't have a term for news. Now we have news, kasebo. It didn't exist. 20 years, that term did not exist, but it's been coined, rightly or wrongly. It's a beautiful term that goes on. Earlier than that, we had Kuwa Krata. Now you agree that it's been changed to Central Krata, something like that. So we can change things. Psychiatric hospital, remember Accra Psychiatric Hospital used to be called asylum some time back. And then we changed it from asylum to mental. And has been changed from mental to psychiatric. Even though we are looking at whether we cannot change it to better terms. So we can change it. It may be generational.
Is there another term that we're thinking?
Because the psychiatric one, it looks a little too complex for many people, and two, is also beginning to gain even the stigma. Elsewhere, people are using terms that don't involve psychiatry. We could call it maybe a relaxation center or home center. In fact, in Britain, there is a house called Antelope House. So the word mental is even not in at all, Antelope House. Except that with time, people get to know that antelope also means mental. But my point is that, yes, you can begin to change things. It won't happen overnight. But as you, especially with the media, we get to a corporation, we begin to change the terms, we use more of the newer term, by people will catch up with it, and it becomes the order of the day.
Okay, I can't resist your mission, which is to promote mental health, prevent mental illness. And I'm reading it because Doc has it in his office, really, to promote mental health, prevent mental illness, and provide accessible, community-oriented, integrated, quality, and culturally appropriate mental health care to persons with mental illness. How much of this mission, since your establishment as an authority, how much of this have you achieved?
Again, we are at the foundational level. One, and it's a mouthful, agreed, but we are spreading services nationwide as against only limiting to the psychiatric hospitals. So we are spreading. We are also integrating to general care. So we are trying to we've trained general health practitioners, Ghana Health Service staff, and CHAC, that's the Christian Health Association of Ghana staff, so that people can begin to administer mental health care in their respective clinics, wherever they are. So by and by, we are extending mental health care to the general population as against the limited area. All along, we say our mental health care is only 98%, has a 98% treatment gap. That means for every 100 people who require mental health care, only 2 are getting. Now, if you are ready to assess, I'm sure you would have reduced it from 98 to probably about 90. Many more people are getting because you're going to the community. And then culturally appropriate and relevant. In other words, we are going to ensure that the traditional healers and the prayer healers, we are not saying we are banning them, but we are saying that if you are administering mental health care, do it appropriately without causing any harm, and don't brainwash them. So again, we are bringing them onto the fold as frontline, informal community mental health workers, and we are on course, so by and by. So if you ask me how much have we achieved, maybe we are just about 5%, I would say, but that gives us the hope that we are moving. And as I said, in about 5 years, I can tell you confidently that probably we are about 80%.
But I'm curious, how do we prevent mental illness?
Mental illness is preventable. Once you get to understand what causes mental illness and you stay away from those causes or those factors, you are preventing. For instance, we know drug abuse is a major cause of mental illness. So somebody has been abusing or smoking weed, cocaine, heroin over a long time, and will tell you that, oh, I know somebody who's been smoking for so long, he's not had it. But that is a cause or a factor for causing mental illness. We know. Truly, it's not everybody who will get it, but a good number of people who smoke weed actually develop mental illness. So if you understand that and you stay away from weed, you are preventing mental illness. We know alcohol abuse can also cause mental illness. If you stay away from alcohol abuse, you are preventing mental illness.
So you can drink, you can smoke, but don't abuse it.
Yes and no. The point is that about 10% of alcohol addicts have a gene that dictates that once you take a tot of alcohol, you'll continue until you become addicted. 10%. 90%, if you belong to the 90%, you can drink and stop at will. The point is you may not know whether you belong to the 10% or not. And so you probably might need to, if you have not started, I would advise, don't start it. If you've started, you are not addicted, I would advise, quit it. If you've started for some long, control it so that you don't go into excesses. As I said, you don't know whether you belong to the 10% or not. So that's that. Stress is various things that can cause stress, like marital issues, financial issues. Stresses will be there, but once you manage to know how to handle the issues and you resolve them, you don't magnify them, you don't see them as huge problems, but rather a challenge, and you are able to solve it, you are preventing mental illness. Physical illness of all kinds, general health problems, hypertension, diabetes, whatever, any general health problem can also bring about mental illness. So if you promptly treat your general health problem, you are preventing mental illness. So these are issues that you can put in place, and you are preventing mental illness. Other general factors, a lot of exercise, sleep adequately, don't get too worried. Problems will be there and you'll be there.
Don't get too worried. I'm not sure if the typical Ghanaian is not too worried about it.
Oh, Ghanaians are better at that. You know, we laugh about many things and trivialize them. We make humor. That is very good. In spite of that, let me just put in these statistics. We know that 41% of Ghanaians are under psychological distress. Trust me, without this humor of ours, probably would have gone higher. So,
but is it good? Is the figure good?
It's way too high. It's not good enough. We need to bring it down. We need to bring it down so that the figure will need to come down. Because in fact, the 41%, 19% actually is such that it's moderate to severe, so that you can call it mental illness. Far too high. 90%, that translates to 1 in 5. So 1 in 5 person in the society.
How many of us are here in this room? We're 5 exactly.
If you want to count,
one of us could be.
In fact, so there are two things. If you want to count, don't start counting from yourself. Start counting from the other person. And the other thing is that
4 of you, we're not 5 years.
The other thing is that if you realize that the other 4 are well, then ask yourself, am I the 5th person? Anyway.
How can you tell if you're beginning to develop something?
It's like you have a vehicle. If you are driving a vehicle, you must be very attentive. You must be familiar with the sound of the vehicle. You must be familiar with any scent in the vehicle. You get up, you're in a vehicle, be familiar with the scent in it, any sound in it, any noise in it. Once you see a change in the noise, it should strike you. Or your panel shows some red, it should strike you. Very often there are warning signs and we ignore them. So you as an individual, you know yourself, you know your happiness level, you know your depressed level or your sadness level, you know your activity level, and you begin to realize that things are changing. Now I feel much happier than I am. Happiness is not bad in itself, but it should strike you. Is there something wrong? I feel sadder than I am. 1 whole day, 2 days, 3 days, I'm sad. I'm even shedding tears, and that is not my normal self. Any change in you, that is not your normal self as yourself. Some might be just trivial, some might be significant. And then that's it. If you are also with another person and you realize that change in that person, especially if it gets protracted 3, 4 days, 1 week, just one day we all can have some mood changes, no problem. But if it persists beyond 2, 3 days, ask yourself a question. And these are things that we can begin to see.
Are there facilities that you can just walk in and say, you know what, I think something is happening to me?
That's exactly where we are driving at. For now, not too many facilities. If you go to any health center, for instance, the chance that he may tell you that I may not be able to help. But we want to get to the point where any health facility, as we began training them all, any health facility, health center, clinic, or hospital should be able to listen to you, assess your situation, and be able to say that, yes, this is a mental health problem, I can handle it, or I cannot, and therefore I forward it to another level, or this is not, so just go and have your rest. We are getting to that point, and as I said, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, my time limit, we will have mental health personnel all over. Knowledge of mental health care will be a public issue, everybody will know, so that the self-care will be there. Many people should understand and take care of themselves. So if you have the self-care, very few people will require really to go even to the specialist. Many people will be able to understand. If the self-care is not enough, you can go to an uncle, a brother, a deacon, your church elder to be able to advise you, and they would also have been trained adequately so that they can advise you appropriately.
Is depression a form of mental illness?
Depression is mental illness. But let me say there are two types of depression. There is a normal depression and there is a clinical depression. If I lose my money and I feel sad, I'm depressed, that is normal. But if this depression goes on beyond, let's say, 2 weeks, it's interfering with my ability to sleep well, it's interfering with my appetite, it's interfering with my job, that is clinical depression.
You know, it's interesting how the Europeans and the Americans will simply say, I have depression, I'm being treated for it. But here in Ghana, once it's a mental condition, nobody would want to associate themselves with it. Don't we experience depression as Ghanaians?
We do, and that's a stigma associated with mental illness. So once you declare, or people get to know that you have one form of mental illness or the other, be it depression, anxiety, whatever it is, then you are stigmatized. And because you don't want to be stigmatized, then you keep it to yourself. You don't want to own up. But elsewhere, they understand that I'm perfectly entitled, just as I'm entitled to have my headache, my malaria, my hypertension, I'm also entitled to have my depression. And there should be no big deal about that. But again, that is one of the issues that by and by we are trying to get there, so that people will recognize that there should be no stigma associated with mental illness, so people can come up openly. We are trying to get some celebrities to be able to open up and say that, yes, I have mental illness. So what? That will be a step towards breaking down the stigma.
This will be tough.
Yes, yes, yes. So as we are listening, any celebrity, please come up, especially if you've had any side problem, come up, let's liaise and see how we can, because we need to break down the stigma.
So what's the whole idea? To inspire others to come out?
Yes, we don't need to keep within ourselves. Let's come out, and that will encourage others to come out for treatment. They say, if you don't let people know of your ailment, you won't get the treatment. And you can come out, if people who have had it and are still successful, come out and say so that you begin to recognize that everybody will know that you can be mentally ill and still successful, be your celebrity, all right, no problem. Elsewhere, you know some presidents that have had mental illness. In fact, there was a Southern African country, I didn't say South Africa, Southern African country, that the president said anytime he went to the office, he was haunted by ghosts. And what he meant was that there were some things, the ghosts were crawling on his skin. So he abandoned the office for some time. That was alcohol abuse, mental illness. That was alcohol.
But
that was a president.
If you did that in Ghana, you would not be fit to be president. You have to be of sound mind.
At the time you have that situation, yes, you cannot. But you can be treated. And once you are treated, you can be your president, you can be your minister, you can be your MP, you can be anything. But at the time you have it, that's where that even there, I must say, that is not every kind of mental illness. It is a mental illness that robs you of your judgment. Just as if somebody commits a crime and he has mental illness, we don't say because he has mental illness, therefore he is not culpable. He is absolved. We do not necessarily say so. But we decide that his mental illness was such that his judgment, his ability to form an intent to commit crime was robbed, was eroded. Then we can say that, yes, he's mentally ill and that was not his responsibility. So if somebody has mental illness, that does not rob him of his judgment, that does not deprive him, that does not come under the category of the sound mind and unsound mind. So again, it means that we actually need to define that aspect in the Constitution, that if you are a person of unsound mind, we need, if you look at the Constitution, there's no definition. We need to define that. So there are many things we need to do as a society, and we are not doing. That is wrong.
When do we begin to measure your achievements or otherwise?
Well, if you agree that silent revolution is something that is even measurable, then you can begin to measure it now. But because I said that we have begun that silent revolution. But for it to be outward, give us some 5 years. 5 years, I promise you. I agree, even my own people, some people are not happy when I say I promise. But that's the truth.
So this is a promise, 5 years?
5 years, it's a promise. Things will change. But that means that if the society should give us what we need to change things they are not giving us, I will begin to hold the society very seriously. I'll hold the society, I'll hold the government, I'll hold the ministry, because you need to give us what you need to do to achieve these deaths occurring, these homicides. We need to stop it. We need to stop them. Indeed, one program you'll be coming up with shortly is that as we are going towards elections, our emotional levels begin to go up. Anything can trigger violence. So we need to prepare our minds. So we are coming up with something like managing our emotional triggers as we move towards election 2016. That's very important. Otherwise, indeed, in the past, we've gone through situations we were lucky to have escaped. Maybe something very serious. We don't want to wait until luck takes us out of things. We need to strategically prepare.
So this is something that the authority is doing or considering, planning?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
If you are through that, very shortly you'll hear from us.
Let me just have a take on this. Other people killing other people. Sometimes you sit down, and I've done that a couple of times. You want to think about why anybody would want to look at another person and want to kill the person, whether they know the person or not. What goes on in people's minds?
Two main things. One, somebody may simply be criminally minded for various reasons. Jealousy, hatred, anger, whatever it is. Just criminal mindedness. And I must say that anybody, if you are criminally minded at that time, you behave foolish. No apologies.
You're not thinking.
You are not thinking. If you are criminally minded, you are not thinking, but you are not mad. You are not mad. You are not, and therefore you will be held responsible for your action. So criminal mindedness is one thing. The other thing is that mental illness is another thing. The type of mental illness that robs people of their judgment. So they are not able to form the intent that this is what I'm saying that I'm doing is wrong or right. They do not realize that what they are putting this person through is wrong, and they will do it because that sanity, that faculty of theirs that tells them that this is wrong is robbed as a result of the mental illness. Such a person will need to be given proper mental health care. Otherwise, you take him into prison, he comes back, he's still there. So two broad things: criminal mindedness, for which they are responsible, or mental illness. Part of the mental illness could be from re-smoking. Some of them are on drugs. And drug abuse will lead you into that kind of situation where you are robbed of your ability to think right. You are mentally ill in that sense.
Finally, Dr. Say, which of the jobs do you like most? Is it being chief executive of the mental authority or running the Accra Psychiatric Hospital?
Well, I think I've graduated from running the Accra Psychiatric Hospital to being the chief executive. Now, it's important that we have this aspect because it's very crucial. It's the oversight, the responsibility. You need to look at that so that you can see and make sure that mental health care, whether at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital or at any place in Ghana, is running very efficiently, effectively, and bringing quality care to the people of Ghana.
How would you want it given to you? Because I know that earlier you mentioned whether it would be just like the way we do the Get Fund, or this would be, how do you think would be appropriate? Because you know, sometimes subventions don't even go.
Well, there are many ways, 3 or 4 major ways of feeding the fund. One is the subvention from the government. It doesn't mean that we have the fund. Therefore, a subvention should not come. Subvention should come. It's not come so far, but it should come. That is one. And then the levy, as I said, which Ministry of Finance will collect. When they collect, they should bring. I know people will say that what's your guarantee that they will bring? I'll say you'll get there. When you get to the bridge, you'll cross it. But the Ministry of Finance or anybody cannot collect money in the name of the mentally ill and not bring. The mentally ill will go and collect their own money. That I can promise. The other thing is that we can write for research grants, for proposals, and then we will get the money into that. And then you also go to philanthropists, individuals, the media. You will display our bank accounts. We have a bank account for that. And then people can contribute to that. Another thing is that we can get event fundraisers, like event organizers, who will then be raising funds at a commission. So all these are options.
So you want to explore all these means?
Yeah, good to explore them all.
Okay. We wish you well.
Thank you very much.